You know the routine. Please make sure your microphones are on mute. If you want to be heard, please put your hand up. I'll keep track of the order of the hands going up. If you fall off the call, then we'll see that you have, and we'll wait for you for a few minutes. If you're not back in a very few minutes, we'll continue the meeting without you as long as we have quorum. And everyone's here, so I'm sure we're going to have quorum. Any questions to the process? Don't think so. We'll go to number 1 on the agenda, please.
I'll leave you on.
Well, I believe number 1's attendance, but I'm number 2, approval of agenda.
I'm going to take attendance, please. Councillor Wheat.
Present.
Councillor McAlpine.
Present.
Councillor Laferriere.
Present.
Councillor House.
Present.
Councillor Bell.
Present.
Councillor Pierce.
Present.
Councillor Chambers.
Present.
Councillor Miller.
Present.
Councillor Coleman.
Here.
Councillor Gatward.
Present.
Yeah, we have a full slate tonight. Number 2 on the agenda, Councillor Laferriere, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McAlpine that the agenda for the County of Brant Council meeting of September 29th, 2020 be approved.
Any additions? Councillor Gatward,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one item under other business
other business?
regarding the Grand River Conservation Foundation.
Thank you. We had another one. Councillor Miller?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Same as Councilor Gatward, one item under other business, cannabis.
Cannabis. Anybody else have anything under other business, new business? Seeing none, we'll call the vote on the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interests. Councillor Ferrier?
Yes, I'm going to have to recuse myself from consent item 7A1 regarding 80 Willow Street.
Regarding?
80 Willow Street.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll go to number 4, delegations. I believe Edith Stone is with us. Edith, if you could just give us your name and your address, please, just for the record.
Edith Stone, 26 Chapel Street, Paris, Ontario.
Thank you. Talk to us, Edith.
Okay. Mayor Bailey and Brant County Councilors. My name is Edith Stone, a longtime resident in the county, specifically Paris. I currently chair several advisory committees and am the chair of Paris Community Policing, as well as the Joint County Policing Committee. I'm speaking tonight as chair of the Paris Community Policing Group. We have not had a formal meeting since February due to the COVID restrictions, but I did have a socially distanced driveway meeting to discuss what is and is not happening in our community. And believe me, there's lots. Tonight, I'm directly speaking on the safety of all pedestrians using any crosswalks in downtown Paris at any time, weekday, evening, or weekend. Have any of you personally spent any time downtown if you could get a parking spot, which is a totally another matter? In my own personal experience, I've been nearly hit 4 times, twice within half an hour using the center crosswalk. That is the one out here by the Bank of Montreal. Did I push the button? Yes. Did I point? Yes. Did I look before stepping off the curb? Yes. The northbound car stopped. The 2 southbounds did not. Did I yell at the open driver's window, "This is a crosswalk"? Yes, but to deaf ears. One of the other 2 times, the southbound car slammed on the brakes and skidded to a stop. As most of you know, I walk with a cane and cannot run or jump to get out of the way. And I don't want to be a statistic. All of these personal incidents happen during the daytime, during the week. Our own residents don't go downtown anymore on the weekend. That's even worse, for it's wall-to-wall people everywhere, and I mean everywhere, lined up on William Street Bridge. So did I, as a community resident, try to take action? Of course. I went to the OPP station to request a focused directed patrol of the downtown. I spoke to an officer who came outside the front door and was told I would get a return call. And I'm still waiting, and that was in late July. Another member of our committee contacted Councillors Pierce and Bell, and only last week did I receive a phone call from the chair of Police Service Board. Jennifer Haley is expecting some form of directive or action plan from council, as she is aware I'm coming here tonight. Our OPP liaison is not available, and we've had no communication for a replacement. Did I go to the county office? Of course. After the third near miss, and I spoke to the mayor a couple of times, who suggested I come before you tonight. And this is the first council meeting available to present. County staff suggested I speak to the Safe Streets group. They were to have spoken to our group back in March, which was then rebooked for June and now is on an indefinite hold. When that group was formed, did they contact us or consult with us? No. From what I can gather, it doesn't have a large number of county participants, but that was earlier in the summer, and it could be quite different now, I'm not sure. So what can be done to provide county residents and visitors alike an enjoyable and safe experience in downtown Paris? 1, educate the public. Perhaps notices in parking lots, at the restaurants, the access points with the river groups, and the real estate and sales offices of the developers. Because Paris does have some unique things here. Signaling your movement intent at Y intersections, yielding at various intersections, and of course, our pedestrian crosswalks. 2, a police presence and enforcement of violators for the drivers who zoom through the crosswalk, pull U-turns, make left turns into parking spots, and right turns on a red at the corner of William and Grand River Street. I understand bylaw can't ticket due to the Highway Traffic Act, as it's a roadway, but again, clarification is needed. 3, maybe we need crossing guards to help us safely cross, as we have with school children. The rest of the residents and visitors deserve to cross safely each and every time too. Is there a time frame for the start of the downtown improvements and an estimated timeline of the completion? I would implore you all to be proactive in this regard rather than reactive when a tragedy happens, and it will. Thank you for your time and looking for solutions and communication in a timely fashion.
Thank you, Edith. Are there any questions to the presenter? Councillor Gatwood first, please. Can't hear you, Councillor Gatwood. We'll go to Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Edith. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was heartfelt, sincere. I have a question for you, and I don't know if you know, but I'm going to ask it and see, because the answer depends on how one approaches the problem. But do you see a lot of the traffic infractions, the aggressive driving, do you see that more as local drivers or out-of-town drivers?
The 2 that drove through the intersection when I was crossing the first time, one of them I do know was local because I know who it was. Mm-hmm. And that's why I yelled.
Okay.
That it was a crosswalk. The rest, I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah, and again, the reason I'm asking that is because sometimes knowing where they're from, you can target that area, or with education campaign, because you mentioned that in your talk, educating and all that. So
because we do have a lot of new people in town too that don't know some of the things that are here, and maybe that's why I said about education too, because I mean it's growing so rapidly. You don't have a lot of control and knowing everybody in every area anymore. So education, I thought, was perhaps a suggestion to let people know that this is how it works here.
No, I think it's a good suggestion. Education, enforcement, and engineering are usually the 3s we look at. So I appreciate the answer. Thank you, Edith.
Thank you.
Councillor Gatwood, are you ready?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Through you to the delegation, thank you for your presentation, Edith, and I know you have the community safety at heart. You've been involved for a long time, and I'm wondering, what would you think if we took those crosswalks out? I guess the reason I say that, there are a lot of new people in town. I remember when I first came to Paris and didn't realize about these new kind of crosswalks I'd never seen before, that you're actually supposed to stop. And as you said, one of them was a local resident. Maybe they were in a hurry. That's no excuse. But a lot of people don't realize, like you said, what the crosswalks are for. And rather than have a tragedy happen, it would certainly improve the traffic flow on the main street, Grand River Street, to have the crosswalks removed and have a light down at the other intersection, synchronized with the one at William Street, so that the traffic can flow freely and people can cross safely at the traffic lights. Have you thought about that, or do you have any?
I think you'd end up more jaywalkers than you've got now, personally, but I don't know. I don't know that people are going to be willing to walk that far to get across the street.
Okay.
That's just my own personal, I don't know how the committee would feel, but that's my own personal feeling. I don't think people would walk that far to go around to come back. But
And that's a fair comment. And just so you're aware, we discussed crosswalk safety at a meeting last fall, the Public Works Committee, when we were still meeting as such. And we referred this safety issue for downtown and the crosswalks to our staff for a report. I'm not sure, I haven't seen a report yet, but I'm sure they are probably working on trying to come up with some solutions. It's been a while since we had the discussion. Mayor Bailey brought it up at the meeting. So he sees these incidents at the Bank of Montreal crosswalk almost every day that he's in his office. So it is an ongoing problem. And I agree with you, we need to find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Councillor.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Edith.
If that meeting took place a year ago, like it's now another year later, I don't think with the number of people that are coming into town, you can wait another year to do something. I just don't think, you can wait that long. Something has to happen, or somebody is gonna make it happen, because it will be then your reaction to an incident rather than trying to fix it first, even if it's a stopgap until you do your redevelopment. But it's dangerous.
Yes, it is, Edith. Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to Edith for coming forward to make this presentation. I'm in regular contact with your colleague and team member, Gloria Town, and she will testify to the fact that this is a subject of a lot of interest. In answer to one of your questions, I know I should be asking you, but I'm going to answer one of yours. I walk downtown almost every day, and I see the things that you see every day. And I've raised the issues that you raise on a number of occasions. And I think we have, I think as a county, as a council, we have something to do here. We have to react to this. It is getting more difficult. Greg Bergeron will know that even just today, I was sending him notes about people illegally parking. I've sent notes to Rob Walton about how we might change the crosswalks and change the intersection at Grand River Street North and William Street. So it's a topic that has my attention, but it also is an issue that every individual walking down in Paris needs to take some accountability for. I mean, I go down there and I watch people cross at the crosswalks at the wrong time. At the intersection between William Street and Grand River Street North, people walk onto that crosswalk on the pedestrian part of it when the lights deliberately say, do not walk. So I accept that we as a county and a council have things to do, but there's an awful lot that the individual, whether he's from Paris or she is from Paris or from outside of Paris, they have a terrific responsibility there. I think we do have to address that crosswalk or that junction, and there are some ideas that are kicking around. An all-way crossing, for example, all traffic stops, people walk across, then they don't walk until all the traffic stops again. So there are ways we can address this, and I would encourage the county and ourselves and all people in the county to enjoy, to work on this problem together. Thank you.
Edith?
I know several years ago, our group had asked about having the countdown indicators at Grand River and William. And Public Works at that time told me, no, it wasn't possible. And one of the former councilors brought it forward, and I guess it was presented in a different way than how we had presented it, and it did happen. So there was advancement made at Grand River and William with having that countdown light, which was helpful. And for flow of traffic, I understand why the green light arrow is, and that's wonderful. But there are cars who honk at cars waiting for that red light, wanting them to go around the corner when they're not allowed to. Like, I've seen people get out of their car, fisting their hands at other drivers. Go, 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 you can go. You can turn right on red. And the guy points, there's a sign, no, you can't. Like, people, and it's not just because of pandemic. And I was just talking to Adam about it. People are very impatient now, and people are demanding. They want what they want when they want it, which is instantaneous. People have lost all respect for others. I don't know. Society is going like, wow. Truly, they just don't care.
You're right, Edith. Councillor House, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. This is more of a comment than a question for Edith, I guess, but if you don't mind indulging me. There are a lot of different aspects to downtown Paris, and that could definitely be improved upon in terms of moving people and cars. And I think from a county perspective and from a staff perspective, I'm confident that a year ago we thought we would be moving quickly into downtown master plan territory and starting to move towards public engagement and fixing things sooner rather than later. Obviously that's been delayed. I think it may continue to be delayed to some degree. Rather than have us moving in a whole bunch of different directions on different topics related to downtown, specific to the crosswalk, the two crosswalks that are not that don't have the signal lights on them for walk and don't walk. I think it'd be worth asking staff to look into, is there some way to better highlight this crosswalk? And I don't know if it's flashing lights, more like bigger flashing lights. I don't know if it's a barricade that comes down like when you cross a railway crossing. But I think Edith's right. I think this is something that while we wait for the downtown master plan to evolve, I think we need to look at some temporary measures and some either, you know, bigger flashing strobe lights that really tell people, tell drivers to stop for these crosswalks, or a physical barrier. I'm just wondering how the process for us, maybe handing this over to our Public Works Department for some investigation and response.
Thank you, Councillor House. Are there any questions to Edith? Edith, you want to speak again?
I was just going to respond to Steve that if, Councillor House, sorry, if you already went to Public Works, you just said a year ago. And they're supposed to be doing some kind of a plan. If they've already had a year to work on a plan and that's not working, is it going to be another year? Like, I truly, I don't think you can wait that long. That's why I put in the suggestion of maybe you have to pay to have a crossing guard to help people across. I don't know. You can't wait another year to give it back to Public Works when you've apparently already done that. I'm just making a comment. I don't know.
I sense your frustration, Edith. Councillor Ferrier, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Edith, for coming to speak to this. We get a lot of complaints about downtown and walkability, traffic, tourism. We have a report coming next month on some mitigation pieces and things we can do to move people more safely. This year is quite the different year, and I don't think anything's gone on the track that we had hoped or expected, and in some ways wanted. I'm wondering if it might be helpful to you, and I guess I'm saying this also to staff Bergeron and staff Walton, if we can get some actual statistics though on what's happening, because we do get a lot of stories, and I've seen them and other people have as well for a long time, for years now. But I'm wondering if we can maybe get some statistics in the near future on the actual accident rates, the actual pedestrian hit rates and pedestrian accidents, on bylaw infractions and types for that specific area of the core. Because maybe while this might be the issue you faced, and it's totally valid, there are other issues in that corridor, and it'd probably be good to have data as to what that is and include the OPP on that. I know you've tried, but maybe we can officially ask for some of those things to come through so we can analyze the entire area. I've said this many times and I'll say it again. That crosswalk to me, when I go to places like Ancaster, and I know those are expensive, they're very expensive. And we are going to be tearing up a whole bunch of downtown soon and putting it right back together. But you know, I see some of the ones in Ancaster, I go, wow, that seems like best practice. And the one we have there, I think is a lot older and isn't really the best practice currently, especially for the foot traffic we've been seeing in the last 2 years. So maybe that's an impetus to continue moving on this. But I'd like to see more data, because we can get 200, 400, however many hundreds of people to come in and each tell a story about a really horrible time they had walking downtown. And they're all true. But let's maybe, I don't know if it'd be helpful for you and your group to share, for us to share some of that data with you so we can look at it more holistically.
Edith, I know that you don't want to hear that, because I'm judging from your
More data. See, I want a solution. I don't want to hear more data to know how many near misses there were.
No, and you know what? Sitting in my office all day, you're right. It's the near misses that are happening all day long. And those are the dangerous things. As you said, you walk with a cane. There's other people that have walkers. And really, truly, the acrobatics that I see all day long out my window are not statistics yet. They're going to be in a different stack of statistics, and we're not going to like that at all. So I sense your frustration, and staff has heard you tonight. We've heard you tonight. We won't wait until we have a problem. We will do something as soon as we can. Even if it's having staff sit in my office and just watch for 2 hours. It's unbelievable what we see all day long. Councillor Ferrier.
I'd just like to respond to that, because I'm not trying to downplay it, and I don't want to be seen to be downplaying a serious concern, because I get those calls too, and I'm downtown almost every day as well. But what I do want to say is, whatever we do with that main crosswalk will have unintended consequences on other parts of a very tight corridor for pedestrians and for traffic. That's why I was saying to look at it more holistically in terms of, we can fix the crosswalk. We can get a better crosswalk. There's lots we can do. We can get better paint. We can get better lights. Absolutely. But in a very tight corridor that's getting tighter all the time with more and more people coming, there are going to be unintended consequences of fixing just one piece and not other pieces, or at least having a plan how to deal with some of the things that will happen. So that's I just want to be clarified there, because I'm not asking to hold it off, and we have those statistics. We should probably get them in a week, but I'm not trying to hold it back. I am trying to say that there's more to it than just that one piece, and I worry greatly for it. So I'm not trying to downplay it. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Edith, your final thoughts, please.
I understand I understand that, but I think the money part of it, if you have an incident, the lawsuit that the county would end up paying is going to be far more than what fixing the crosswalk or having somebody man it or putting a barricade up and down. It will be far more if an incident happens. That's all I'll say.
No, thank you, Edith. And it's not a financial thing that's deterring us from doing it. We don't want to see anyone hurt any more than you do. We're not worrying about a lawsuit, and we're not worrying about 2 lawsuits. We're worrying about the fact of getting it fixed or fixed up so that no one does get hurt like you're suggesting, because you're right, it's going to happen and we're all going to be here to see it. So thank you for
Thank you
coming.
for your time, everybody, and have a good evening.
Thanks, Edith. Any other questions? Oh, Edith is on her way out. Councillor Wheat. Councillor Wheat? No?
Here.
What do you want to do with this, Councillor Wheat? Receive it?
Receive his information.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Coleman? Any other comments? All those in favor? Thank you. I really do think we need to listen to what Edith had said. I think that it's the calm before the storm, and we should act on it as quickly as we can in some way. Going now to number 5, please, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman that the County of Brant Council minutes of September the 15th, 2020 be approved.
Thank you. Are there any discussions, any questions? Anything you feel has been left out? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any business arising from those minutes? Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 4 of the minutes, item number 5, I'm just wondering if a meeting date has been set yet.
Who knows that? Anyone know
And
that?
who is going to call the meeting, us or Family and Children's Services?
Michael, do you know anything about who's calling that meeting?
Your Worship, through you, first of all, can you confirm you can hear me, Your Worship?
I can, thank you.
Just wanted to make sure. Yeah, all I know is we have sent a letter off, and I think it requested a meeting. We'll probably wait for a response, and we would do a follow-up at an appropriate time. I can't confirm whether a meeting has been scheduled at this point.
Mayor Bailey, it's Heather Boyd.
Hi, Heather.
They've contacted me to try to set up a meeting with you. So that was today. We'll get working on that.
Yep, as soon as possible. I know it's something Councillor Gatward wants to see happen sooner than later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business arising from the minutes? Consent items, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move by myself, second by Councillor Gatward, that the consent items 7A1 to 7A3 be approved.
Anything, questions, concerns? Councillor House, please.
Mr. Mayor, I had a couple questions
Point
about.
of order. Point of order.
Councillor Ferrier.
I need 7A1 separated so I can leave the meeting, and then I can talk about 2 and 3.
I'm sorry. Yep, so we're going to separate 1 and you're going to leave. Thank you. So we have to talk about number 1 first. Do we have a staff who's going to report on that? Greg? Where is he?
Yes, I'm here, Your Worship.
Thank
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I understand there was some last minute questions in relation to this matter. Just to provide clarification, we received a request or an application from the Condo Corporation asking us to do parking enforcement on private property. Traditionally, under the previous bylaw 16401, this wasn't contemplated. Over the course of, I would say 2016, 2017, 2018, we started compiling data in relation to mostly condo corporations requesting some assistance with enforcement on private property. So it was included in bylaw 004-19, which was enacted in January of 2019. This is the first actual application and request that we've received. So we are charting some new grounds here, but we are confident that we can certainly provide some assistance in that regard. I understand that there's some parking issues on the property. So it's a service that we're providing, quite frankly, and it's something that I think we can undertake at this point. I did have some conversations with Councillor Howes earlier, and my understanding is if this becomes too onerous for staff, as I've explained, there is opportunity for us to basically appoint parking control officers for specific private properties if it becomes too much of a drain on our resources. We're not quite there yet. We're still in the infancy stage, but we have a second request from a different property as well that we're processing. So there is a need there in the community to provide some assistance. It's mostly going to be cost neutral. There will be some opportunities for revenue, but this wasn't really, a project for generating revenue. Was more of a project to provide some assistance to some of the condo corporations that were asking for our help.
Good. Thank you, Greg. Councillor Howes, you want to speak to that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm trying to understand all of the dynamics involved in this one. And I certainly appreciate our staff and the effort to try and help with a situation that seems to have some opposing views, and I think we saw something in our addendum about that tonight. Up until now, this new bylaw, which allows our bylaw staff to enforce parking in private property, has only really been applied at 139 Grand River Street North, which arguably looks to some people like a public parking lot, and I think it makes sense where we get involved. I'm not sure I'm as convinced that the municipality should start getting involved in enforcing parking issues on private property. I'm wondering if it's a bit of a slippery slope that we end up doing this in other places. I also have some, as the property is in Ward 2, I have some concerns that if suddenly people can't park within that property, within the boundaries of that property, that then they start parking on some of the side streets nearby. And then we get calls about that. This ties back to the concern that I was expressing to one of our recent development applications, where I'm not sure the developers are factoring in enough parking spaces within their properties, and it ends up biting us. So I have some reservations about this, and I'm not sure I'm prepared to support it at this time. I guess my specific question to Greg is, if we're doing parking enforcement on a private property that happens to be a condo board, which has a board of directors, are we enforcing parking rules that their board of directors have created, or are we enforcing our own parking rules? I just clarify that. And also, if like, do we issue tickets? Where does the ticket money go? Does it go to the condo board? Does it go to the municipality to help offset the costs of us being involved? If you could just explain that a little further, please.
Certainly. So all of the revenue that would be generated, I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, all of the revenue that would be generated would go to the county. Directly, we are enforcing the bylaw. Indirectly, we are enforcing some of the rules of the condo corporation. that are written. But our role in all of this would be to issue tickets under our bylaw. And as I've said, all of the revenue would go to the county.
Thank you.
Councillor, are you finished, Councillor Howes? I'm sorry.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Councillor Bell first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question of philosophy. I live in a condo. We have signs that say this is private property, but let me take it to another level. I'm sure Councillor Coleman feels like his property is private. So if somebody drove in and parked on that private property, or if it was Councillor McAlpine's private property, how would we react? What actions would the owner of that property take? And what would be the difference whether it's a condo or an individual's own house?
So they would have to make it to the Schedule 16 in order for us to be able to legally go onto their property to provide those services. So part of that process is an application, and every time that they're requesting parking enforcement, they would have to request it in writing through a proper form. So every single occasion that they're looking for that, there's a document in writing that's provided to us, that we will keep on record for future reference. We just don't walk onto any private property to do that, and I think that most of the people that are going to approach us to do this type of enforcement are going to be the larger properties that have multiple dwellings and condo units and things like that.
Yeah, I'm still struggling with the idea. They're all private properties, whether it's an individual's property or a condominium's property. They're described as private. So right. How would Councillor McAlpine get somebody to move the car off the end of his drive when it's on his private property? Would they contact you, or would they contact the OPP? And what would be the difference whether it's condo or Councillor McAlpine's property?
Well, the condo, like I said, the condo would be added to the schedule. If people aren't on the schedule, then we would certainly, if people are on the schedule, it would be by law enforcement that would attend. But if somebody is parking in somebody's private driveway, the OPP can certainly respond, and I would venture to guess that would be a Trespass to Property Act.
So what would be the difference then if the residents of 80 Willow Street called the OPP? Would that not serve the same purpose?
Right.
No, because from what I'm understanding, through you again, Mr. Mayor, from what I'm understanding, the problem with this particular location is related to people parking in the visitor parking that are unauthorized, whether that's tenants or the general public. So they do have agreements that are set with the residents of the condo corporation, and they are aware that those spots for visitors are exactly that, for visitors. I think that seems to be the issue for this particular location. I think every location may have their unique set of problems, and we're here to provide assistance and a service at this point. But anything that would be outside of Schedule 16 would fall on the OPP under the Trespass to Property Act.
I think we're opening up an enormous can of worms here. I'm with Councillor Howes in his concerns there. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Pierce, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So a couple things here. That was going to be one of my questions in regards to the 80 Willow there, in regards to the visitors parking. How are we or you or any of the bylaw officers able to understand if in fact that is a visitor's vehicle or a resident's vehicle, or to your point, somebody who doesn't even reside in there? I think that's going to be a very difficult slope to climb. And then I look at the other side of this coin. When I was reading this, we're doing something down on West River Street right now where we're taking 2 spots and making them, potentially permitted spots on the street, because we're having people that live in they're condos that are living in there parking on the street. I'm afraid here that may entice people to do the same thing. So right now they're parking within that private property. All of a sudden there's tickets starting to be laid, and they're going to park elsewhere. And then we're going to get people potentially others that live on the opposite side of Willow Street that don't necessarily have parking spots, that have street parking. I agree. And I was going to use the analogy of the can of worms, but I think Councillor Bell just beat me to that. I don't think at this time that I can really support this either, because I think this is going to, unfortunately, you know, it's all the great intentions and good intentions. I get that, but I think this is going to come back to bite us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Pierce. Councillor Gatward, please. Can't hear you. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, when this came forward, I thought, I think that we would be, as Councillor House put it, approaching a slippery slope. I think the condo board should enforce their own parking regulations, not the county residents, through our bylaw enforcement office. I think our bylaw enforcement office is probably busy enough with cannabis and all the other bylaw related issues they have to deal with. So I can't support us doing this I mean, once we do one condo corporation, one area, they're all going to be asking for the same thing. And the residents overall in the county shouldn't be paying for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gatward. Any other comments before we're going to call the vote on this separately?
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
just for clarification, there is a set process where the person who's responsible, that's been identified in writing by resolution from the condo corporation, would be responsible to provide that information as to what vehicles, the plate numbers, where they're located. So there is a process. There'd be no confusion as to whether that vehicle is authorized or not. As far as court time, that individual would be required to attend court as well. So it's been thought out. Certainly, I can certainly appreciate the comments from council, but there has been some thought that's been put into this this procedure.
Anyone want to speak again? Heather, we're going to separate this. We're going to vote on this one first. Can you make clear what we're voting on, please, the wording?
Yep. The motion is that council approve the addition of 80 Willow Street to Schedule 16 of the County of Brant Parking Bylaw 419 to allow for the enforcement of vehicles parking in private parking lots in contravention of the bylaw.
Okay, so we're clear what we're voting on? All those in favor? Opposed? Madam Clerk, how'd we do? We can't hear.
Sorry, we're 5-5. It's a tie. The motion is defeated.
5-5, it's been defeated. Okay, carrying on to number 2, please. Anything we discussed there? Number 3? No discussion? Call the vote on 2 and 3. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Councillor Howes has number B. Nope, Councillor Gatward.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to speak to 7B3, or no, 7A3.
All right.
When I read this, I thought, okay, we're making a formal agreement with the city because they only have one tanker truck and they need our help if there's a fire. And I understand that mutual aid has always been part of our fire service. However, I just wanted clarification. It says the first hour or partial hour, 2 times the MTO rate. And And I understand from the fire chief, that is to mean that we would send, if there was a call in the former boundary lands that we transferred to the city, that we would be requested, if it was a structure fire, to send 2 tankers. So that's why we have 2 times the MTO rate, which is $488 for the first hour. So that would include a tanker from 2 different stations, plus the firemen to man that. Now, if we had to send 4 tankers, I want it clear that it would be 4 times the MTO rate. I think this is, it wasn't clear in here, in my opinion, and that's why I called the fire chief. So can staff make sure that that is clear, that they are paying for each truck and the men for each tanker that responds, whether it's 2, 3, 4, or 5 tankers?
Councillor Gatward, thank you. Councillor Wheat, please.
I thought we'd already voted on this, Mr. Mayor.
Well, we did, but with the electronic system here, I'm not sure whether I didn't see Councillor Gatward's hand. I don't think her hand was up, but I was giving her the benefit of the doubt. We have voted. Staff has heard Councillor Gatward's concern. They'll make sure that how she feels is at least being received by the staff, and we'll move forward. We have voted, and we're going to move on now to number B.
Yeah, and I think that's the intent.
Thank you,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Gatward. Councillor Howes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, through you, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor LaFerrier, the consent items 7B1 to 7B5 be received as information.
Thank you. We're just receiving it as information. Councillor Gatward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 7B3, I'd like to speak to that.
Okay.
Do you want me to speak now, or?
I sure do.
Thank you. I read this about the school bus armed camera programs that are being implemented. The new school buses, many of them are equipped with these cameras on the arm. I've had complaints in my area on Oakland Road where people pass the school bus when they shouldn't be passing the school bus. And I'm not sure about any of the other rural areas in the county, whether any other councillors have had calls, but I have, and I know that the people have also reported it to the OPP. So are we going to look into implementing a program as described in 7B3? The correspondence from the Ministry of Transportation, because they are bringing this to us, and they're saying don't hesitate to contact their safety program development office if we would like to participate in enacting this type of program. I don't know that we might need it on all our buses, the school buses, but I do think in one area where I'm aware of, it would be beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gatward. I believe that the problem is county-wide. I don't know that there's any part of the county that we haven't all seen things like that happen, and it's very infuriating and it's very irresponsible. I think right now we're receiving these things as information, and staff will bring back a report on their safety programs and what it would cost. I think that if we were to do something like this, we would get a costing for the whole county, because all children's lives matter. And we would price it out that way and see if it was feasible for the county. But right now we're looking for a motion to receive these things as information.
And I agree that that staff look into it. I think that the cost is to the school board and the school bus companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Catward. Any other questions or concerns on any of the 5 items before we vote to receive? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you for that, though, Councillor Gatward. I think it's important that you pointed that piece of correspondence out. Staff reports, number 8A, please. Councillor McAlpine.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Miller that staff report RPT-20-131 Economic Development Strategy Update be received as information.
Any questions? Concerns? Councillor Miller?
We're on 8A, shovel-ready land. And if according to the report, staff feel that private ownership is the way to go. And it's a long report. I think Russell must have worked pretty hard on putting that one together. So reading through it, I'm just wondering, other than what's in the report, what is the Economic Development Department doing to help promote these private lands? In the report, what I've read in the attachment A, which is page 75 of our package, you're referencing we do an inventory, employment land strategy, working through the official plan. And then long-term, you're looking at maybe an annual ICI event down the road or something to that respect. But what is the Economic Development Department doing, or are they doing anything to promote this? For example, are we looking at maybe the services that they might need? Are we putting this up in any media, some of these lands? Are we are we talking to the owners, seeing what they need? Maybe they need MTO approval or GRCA approval or anything. Are we doing anything at this point other than what's already listed in this report to support this, to promote this? I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Press.
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you for the question, Councillor Miller. The answer to that is, in short, yes. I would think nearly all the above, in the sense that we are facilitating and helping, the private developers, in the sense that when an inquiry comes in, that we are hopping right on it and we're assisting, facilitating, so that they get the information that's asked. We're able to provide it. In terms of promotion, we have put considerable effort and strategy and a few dollars behind a site selection tool, and we're continuing to develop that as well. We correspond and we do promote in industry forums. Really, our position is to be able to help when an inquiry is made. We're getting inquiries. There's a long list. We have a strong pipeline of inquiries that come in really quite regularly. And we're continually, the Senior Economic Development Officer, and in addition to the Research and Marketing Economic Development Officer, are always being able to put packages together to be able to help facilitate and answer those questions. So we are doing that at the ground level, at the tactical level, as per our strategy and as per what's asked of us. From the higher strategic level, that's where Allison would really commandeer and provide the direction on that piece. And I'm not sure if she would want to speak to that, Councillor.
Councillor Miller?
Well, I'll thank Russell for his answer. And I know some people might argue, well, these are private lands, county can stay the heck out of it. But I mean, at the same time, we're the ones that'll gain from the assessment, and it brings jobs to our local people. So I do think it's important that our staff play a role wherever they can to facilitate making this happen. So I'm happy with the answer, and thank you very much, Russell.
Councillor Bell, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Russell. Excellent report. Really enjoyed reading it. I think there's some great statistics in there which we should all feel very comfortable with. A couple of specifics in the institutional building permits. I don't know when the cutoff was, but you don't appear to have included the community health hub, which adds another $12 million, I guess, to that number of nearly 14. So second thing was on Brant employment lands, where from 42 acres currently shovel ready, we go to, if I'm reading it right, 790. So that's a 20-fold increase. Perhaps for the benefit of people watching this, you could explain approximately where that 20-fold increase will come from.
Well, these are, thank you, through your worship, Councillor Bell. These increases are in the pipeline. It's through private developers that are expressing interest at the moment and continue to work towards meeting what the needs that they have and are being able to facilitate help the development continue with what it is that they're striving to be able to do. Again, at the more strategic level and speaking specifically to the more general frame that we're taking on this corporately and from a staff level, I would ask Allison to speak to that. Yeah.
Allison, do you want to speak to that?
Certainly. Through you, your worship, we right now are obviously seeing a boom and a high demand from private developers. So part of what's happening there is those developers tapping into trunk servicing. They would be responsible when those developments move forward. And I would use maybe the River Rails Business Park as a good example of that, where they just have water at the moment. They don't have wastewater. They would be responsible for making that connection. And it's one of the things that we are looking to partner on more and more. It's an efficient use of our resources to be able to do so, to put those dollars into infrastructure. Another example is the health hub and being able to extend those services. That was actually something that Rob Walton identified, an opportunity to extend those services down Curtis Ave to facilitate expansions for those businesses at the end of Curtis Avenue who didn't have full servicing. So as these developments move forward, they're able to tap into, like I said, to either adjacent or our trunk servicing and bring those in. And the residential development it aids in that also, be able to get servicing to certain areas and then subsequently have the employment lands tap into that.
Thank you for that.
Alison, if I just ask a follow-on question, I mean, philosophically, to increase the amount of shovel-ready serviced employment lands, philosophically, where are we going to put that? Can you help the audience that's listening tonight to know where more or less that's going to be? I would hope it's going to be along the 403 corridor.
Allison, do you want to speak?
Through you, your worship. So these are proposed developments. As I said, not all of them have full servicing. They would be responsible to do so as they move forward with their development. It is spread around the county, predominantly in Paris, but a large portion of it is going along that 403 corridor. And if you like, we could certainly provide a map and further details on that. We spoke of it as sort of order of magnitude within this report, but we can certainly get you the details on that pipeline as far as where they're located throughout the county and how they're spread out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Russell and Allison, for the report on the employment lands. Those of us who have been on council for a few years will remember times when the private sector was not interested hardly at all in developing employment lands. So there are booms and busts with private employment land development. And as Allison said, we are in a boom right now. The members that have been here before we took the step in purchasing the land along the 403 interchange where the Adidas factory initiated that. Just prior to that, there was very little interest in private development. in employment lands. So my question is, how do you track the booms and the busts of private development wanting to develop?
Allison, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Through you, Your Worship. I think there are a number of factors certainly that we're seeing right now. I would say one of the biggest ones right now is it's been sort of over the last 15 years, almost a ripple effect coming out of the Toronto area, particularly in industrial lands. Just the price of land around the Toronto area has just reached a point where it's not financially feasible for those companies to buy industrial land, and the density goes up, and they need to build office, just because of the numbers and the land prices. And slowly it started to work its way west, and that ripple has now reached us as things build out further to the east of us. So that's certainly a big dynamic. And the population growth would be another one. There's a more diverse skill set and abundance of labor as any population grows. And, we'd like to think too, like, I just think it's the maturity of the county and the maturity of the economy is starting to diversify. So we are attracting different industries that may not have thought of Brant as a site selection location previously.
Thank you. Follow-up question, Councillor Chambers?
Yes, and just to follow up another question, with in employment land development, it becomes very competitive with municipalities. If you drive along the 401 and the 403 toward Woodstock, you'll see that Woodstock is very competitive. If you go north to Guelph and the Kitchen-Waterloo area is very competitive, and municipalities sometimes need to be more competitive than the other ones that seem to take it away from us. So how is competition and incentive handled by the private sector as opposed to the municipal employment lands, where we can be a little bit perhaps more competitive and maybe secure some of the employment industries, et cetera, that are going to the Woodstocks and the Guelphs and the Dundas Hamilton area, et cetera?
Allison?
Through your worship, I don't think the private sector, quite honestly, has at this point in time, and it's not to say that they won't in the future, but at this point in time has found the need to incentivize, aside from, I'm sure that they are competitive in terms of the ancillary services that some of these places offer. So we've seen a lot more of the larger firms that are active, who might offer project management. They do design build options. So they have a lot of services that they can sort of wrap around for an end user. And that's certainly an incentive in and of itself, sort of in kind. It certainly is competitive with our surrounding municipalities. And at this point in time, when there's a really high demand, the best case scenario is that we're following middle of the pack. You don't want to be the most expensive one out there, but you don't want to be the cheapest either. There's usually a reason why you're the cheapest, and it's usually to do with some disadvantage of the area. Right now, we are following middle of the pack. One of the things that was noted in Russ's report was really monitoring that competitive position and bringing forward more statistics to the county on how we compare across the board to surrounding municipalities in terms of overall cost to relocate and invest here. And that's something that's definitely going to be a focus for us to bring forward in our next update.
Thank you. Councillor, please. Councillor Wheat?
Withdraw.
Withdraw. Councillor Gatward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Allison. While we're talking about development, has there been any promotion of the industrial lands out at County Road 25 in the former River Township?
Allison?
Through your worship, promotion by the county?
Yes.
You mean?
Yes.
No, we haven't. Part of the difficulty we have, if I'm thinking of the correct parcel, is a lack of full servicing to that area. That being said, we are doing a complete inventory right now through the process of the employment land needs analysis. That's now been rolled into the OP. So the sort of next step, once that's completed, is assessing all that vacant land and deciding how best to move it forward and how it should be almost prioritized within the land needs analysis and the overall OP process.
So that's being done now for a year-end report, or when do you plan to bring that forward to council?
The employment land needs, excuse me, through your worship, the employment land needs analysis is now part of the OP process. So they will be reporting on that. It's being led by the planning group, and we're working in conjunction with them. And I believe a report will be coming forward shortly in the next few months on the status.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Pierce. Oh, Michael Bradley. Mr. Bradley?
Your worship, if you want to go to Councillor Pierce, I just had some to add to Councillor Chambers' question, but I can do that after if you'd like.
All right, I have a couple more questions here. Councillor Pierce, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I think it's quite ironic on our agenda tonight. It's got the economic development strategy update be received as information. This thing is packed full of information. I'd like to say thanks to Russ and the entire team, because I think if our entire county were to read this report, they'd be flabbergasted. I don't think anybody understands how much is happening in the county at any given time. And this report nails a lot of things. And it just goes to show that there is a ton happening in the county. And thank you again for wrapping it all up in this report. There's huge information in there, and I think it's fantastic. I read a lot of good news stories in there, which is in the times we're in. I think we can be very happy for that. So again, I think it's a fantastic report, and thank you for it.
Councillor Ferrier, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. That wasn't me ringing. Yeah, I agree. I agree with Councillor Pierce. This is a great report. I think Councillor Wheat's not muted, and something's going on in his place there. But anyway, I have two questions, even though I think it's a wonderful report. Okay, can somebody mute Councillor Wheat, please? Okay, I think it's a wonderful report. I think it's great. We don't have the time to go over every awesome thing in it, but I agree with Councillor Pierce that if more people read it, man, some of the things we have going on, a lot of municipalities would kill for. That's also not me playing a video game, but there's that noise anyway. I'll get to my point. I have two questions. They're both about things that are in the red on the second part of the report. So even though I love the report, I have to ask some more difficult questions.
Are we excuse me, are we able to mute Councillor Wheat's microphone?
Well, if we do, he'll have to unmute himself as well. So I don't know if we can do that.
All right, maybe he'll turn off whatever is going there. It's a security system.
It's got his fire radio on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a red alert.
Anyway,
okay, so I'll just try to make my way through this. Sorry, Russ, for keeping you on hold here. We had Edith come in today, and she was talking about some of the issues downtown. We receive a lot of this. I know we have a report coming about tourism and mitigating folks, helping with flow. But there's a piece in there that's in the red about future-proofing of downtown. And I know why most of the reds are there due to what's happened this year and this being an untypical year. But when we talk about that future-proofing, not just for downtown, but in sort of future versions of this, how much are we considering as an economic development area, and I guess this is also for planning, but they're not here right now, urban flight? Because urban flight is becoming quite an issue this year, and it's been creeping up more and more so. In some ways it's positive, especially with things like business, but in other ways it creates unique challenges to maintain our rural identity or our small town identity. Can you comment on that? And then I have one other question.
Through you, Your Worship. Yeah, absolutely. To Councillor LaFerriere. The actual specific red piece you're talking about under Pillar 3, Objective 1 here is that was put in specifically to kind of talk about and mitigate some of the effects of development outside of the downtown. So putting some mechanisms in place to be able to help that development contribute to the maintenance and the growth and the development of downtown. That was the design behind that. As far as urban flight, it's something that we do look at in economic development, something that we try to put some mechanisms in place. It's something that has come up in a number of scenarios, and we get them at our level, Councillor, very specifically. So it'll be in terms of, well, you witnessed it today in terms of a crosswalk at our level, in terms of parking. I really don't want to open up a can of worms, but there's areas where some recreational activities take place, and people aren't able to do that in their area, so they come to ours and kind of make it a little bit more difficult to appreciate those recreational activities and facilities that we have. So we see it at really the ground level, and we're trying through data, through best practices, and in dealing with our regional stakeholders like the RTO and a lot of it, the Regional Tourism Organization, if we're talking about tourism. If we're talking about some of the things that happen with SCORE, our another regional partner. We try to get ahead of it. We try to look at what is the next thing that might be impacted that we could possibly get ahead of. And you alluded to tourism standalone report that's coming in the next cycle to deal with the volume of activity that's been going on here this year in the county. And we're not only going to be looking at how to look at that now, but also moving forward, realizing that the beauty that is the county of Brant, and unless somebody drains the river or takes away the rolling hills, people are still going to want to, it's going to be an appetite for people to come and enjoy. So how do we get ahead of the urban flight? How do we actually, get ahead of that flight is what we're doing. And we're tackling it with data. I'm heavily involved in acquiring the data to try and look at it, to look at other municipalities of our size and similar makeup, which there aren't a lot. I'll let you know that. We are pretty unique, but to be able to try and see what they've done or where they might have fallen down, and we make sure that we avoid that. So we do look at it, and I have to say that of all the things that, and thank you for the kudos for the report, this report would not be able to be produced if it was not for the investment made in the research, marketing, economic development officer. To be able to get that data and have someone whose role it is to acquire that data and to analyze it and to give us a heads up on that data is essential to mitigating current situations and getting ahead of other ones. And urban flight is certainly one that might be a new word or a new term for some, but it's definitely one that we're acquainted with. I hope that answers your question, Council.
Oh, it did. Thank you. I hope I don't see on social media that council is deciding to drain rivers and take away the rolling hills after a comment. But my other question is about the heritage strategy. That's also in the red, the arts, culture, and heritage strategy. And I wonder because, you talked about the hiring of an officer and how that helped. I know we approved last year a heritage planner position, but I don't think that's been filled as of yet. I'm wondering what we can do as a council or we can do as a county to turn that heritage strategy from the red column to the yellow or the green column, because I'm struggling as a member of council to look at ways that we can enhance heritage. And I think with the urban flight pieces, with the growth pieces, I think it's so important. And I think it's also really important for our economic development and our tourism, our quality of life. But what can we do to move that piece of the report further into the yellow and green areas?
Through your worship to Councillor LaFerrier, again, a great question. And recognizing that it is red now, I will say that I think COVID had a big impact on that as well. We were planning to put the RP out to start that process. A little bit of a staffing matter that we hope to rectify to be able to move that forward. the heritage and arts master plan strategy is really essential to further development of what we term the cultural economy. And I got to be honest, this is the part that I really love about my role, is the integration between what we've talked about with shovel-ready lands and how that ties into having a healthy cultural template inside the community. The reality is, industry that you want to have here and diversifying the income diversifying the employment they look for things, and one of those things is the cultural identity and the ability to have a healthy cultural infrastructure in the municipality they're going to be operating in for their employees and for themselves. So this is something, it's a big project, it's a large project, it touches on a number of things. But it will, once we start it, and I would say more poignantly to your question, Councillor, that we would want to get this going as soon as we possibly could. And that would alleviate and speak to a number of other things that come up in economic development and help progress things along.
Thank you, Russell. Michael, did you still want to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to follow up. It was a question that Councillor Chambers asked, and I think we provided some answer, but I had a few additional thoughts. The question was, how do we stay competitive, when the private sector is the developer of land? And I think we tend to get focused on what we did in the past, where we were the seller of the land, the county was the seller, and that's how we remained competitive by providing competitive prices. But that's an expensive game for a municipality to stay in the long term, especially if we don't need to. But the way we continue to stay competitive is with all the other values that we offer as a municipality. Obviously, services, water, wastewater, transportation, competitive taxes, competitive development charges, assistance in employment, workforce planning, but then all the softer services that we offer as a municipality too for those workforces, recreational assets and programming. Russell was just talking about cultural assets and programming, a healthcare system that's vibrant. The list goes on and on. So I think our strategic plan right now is really a guidebook, in my opinion, to moving from a land seller to supporting the land sellers, who are the private sector, with our huge number of ancillary services that we offer as a municipality. So I just wanted to provide some further thoughts to the answer for Councillor Chambers' question. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Michael. That was great. And thank you, Russell, again for the report. It was great. A lot of information, and it certainly does spell out why we're so busy, why there's so many people here. As I told you at lunch today, Russell, stop working so hard. Anyway, with that being said, call the vote. All those in favor to receive? Yeah, thank you. B, Councillor Pierce, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wheat, that staff report RPT-20-150, the financial update, be approved as presented.
Are there questions to the report? Heather's here to answer any of your questions. Are there any? Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Heather, as staff allocate the provincial funding to various areas, those allocations will come to us for approval first, or how do you plan to manage the disbursement of the $1.7 million?
Heather?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we will be bringing forward, summarizing all the costs and bringing forward a report to council to summarize all the costs that we will be applying the 1.7 towards.
Thank you.
Any other background? Any other questions to Heather? Seeing none, call the vote to receive. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Oh boy, here we go. Number C, the emergency grants. Councillor Weech, you have this.
Moved by myself, second by Member Pierce. Whereas businesses, including nonprofit and charity groups, have been impacted greatly by the COVID-19 virus in terms of revenues and unintended expenses, that the attached emergency grant application list be approved.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wheat. Councillor Ferrier?
Yeah, I'd like to move an amendment seeking a seconder.
Okay, what's your amendment?
My amendment is to disqualify all the grant applications that didn't meet requirements for the application requirements from consideration for this, and refer them to the 2021 budget process application.
Seeking a seconder. Councillor Howes. On the floor for discussion. Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, when I read this report, I was disappointed that number 16 didn't include their list of directors. So I got that information, the names of the president of the Legion, the treasurer and secretary, and forwarded that in an email late this afternoon to Robin Hewitt. I can't support Councillor Laferriere's motion. I know that number 16, the South Brant Legion, are holding on by a string. They haven't been able to fundraise. Their roof has started leaking and they need help. So I don't believe that their request is out of line, even if we don't feel we want to give them the whole amount of money. They do need help. We don't want our legions to close. I know that one in the city has closed during this time, branch 90. And so I would not support Councillor Laferriere's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gatward. Councillor Pierce, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, speaking to the amendment, I'm going to support the amendment, and I don't want any legions to go under either. I don't want anything to go under, and everybody has been through the same difficult time. We've gone over this for a number of years now with our grants. All we're asking them to do is fill out the information that is required on the form. Councillor Gatward, you said that they forgot about it and you have the information now. That's great. And that's appreciated that you're doing that work. But again, it is very simply put on the forms. All we're asking them to do is fill out the forms. We've been over this for a number of years now. And if they don't complete the forms, I would support them not being eligible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pierce. I think what we're going to do here now, before Councillor Gatward, what is it?
Well, I just wanted to correct. Councillor Pierce said they forgot. I want to just explain that when I got my Friday file and read a sheet that said these emergency grants were available, I knew our Legion was struggling. They hadn't seen it online. They knew nothing about it. So I sent them a copy of the county grant application form. They had one day to fill it out and send it in. So they didn't have much time. And for one day, I was surprised they got it in at all. But I think that I'm not sure if it was the secretary that filled it out, and she's a local person here, but they're not a real, shall I say, formal organization. Maybe a lot of our legions aren't, but they can't wait till the 2021 grant period. They have to fix their roof before winter. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ferrier, please.
Yeah, I just want to speak to this because I don't want to be painted as being against any particular organization, because I'm definitely not. And I don't think anybody voting either way is or isn't. But I just, there needs to be some criterion. And this is something that's come up again and again and again. And I mean, the ask is for some budget statements and who the board of directors are, so we don't have a group that's, you know, mostly run out of another town or another community, I should say, applying for grant money. We were, you know, $140,000 is requested out of 44,000 that's left. You know, to me, that speaks to needing something. However, I mean, I don't know if, you know, we see how this goes, and if there wants to be a motion from Councillor Gatward about, you know, do we actually have this information? Can somebody on staff say that this information is here now? However, it's also something that's kind of late. Like any granting organization, and you've worked with some and I've worked with some, if you don't fill out the forms correctly, then, you know, that's a pretty big barrier. I've never applied for a grant and left out requested information and expected, especially a large grant like $15,000 to come in. So again, it's commendable, but maybe there's another way we can work on this. I'm just trying to do something or suggest something that I think will be fair to the process. It's not against one group or another. I just wanted to make that statement.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bell, are you speaking to Councillor Ferry's amendment?
No, I can wait till we address the main motion.
Thank you. Oh, okay, so you know what? I think we need to vote on the amendment because it will have everything to do with how we proceed with the options that are laid out in front of us so that this doesn't become a circus. Councillor Chambers?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking directly to the amendment, I do support the intent of the amendment, although Councillor Gatward does bring up an interesting scenario in that had the Legion, South Brant Legion, not been advised by Councillor Gatward, they wouldn't even have known that this grant process was even available. And I'm thinking that there are probably other organizations that would be in a similar situation that weren't notified at the last minute. And I'm wondering a question with there are additional dollars remaining. And I think one of the recommendations in here is to put that to the next budget. But I'm wondering if there's another opportunity for people that or organizations that were just unaware and maybe are still unaware that there are monies available for emergencies to make themselves available for that. Because I know, for example, I think any Legion is suffering at this point. All the Lions Club, not just one or two, but all the Lions Clubs in the county are suffering. All the minor hockey organizations are suffering, and some of the and all the figure skating organizations are suffering. And it just seems like we're closing a door where we might not have to close the door at this point if we leave it open for additional information to come in ongoing. So my question is that a possibility? And does voting for this amendment preclude that from being a possibility?
Okay, Councillor Pierce first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just for clarification here, Councillor Gatward stated that when she received her Friday file, and she noticed it in there that she approached the branch, South Branch Legion with this information that they were unaware of. Unless I'm reading this report incorrectly, the report states that theirs was received on September 14th, which is 2 weeks ago. So I'm confused here. But to me, regardless of whether it was 2 weeks ago or at the last minute, it wasn't completed correctly or completely. So again, can somebody clarify for me on the report we're talking about here, where it says date received and it says September 14th, is that the date their application was received?
That's right, Councillor Pierce, but.
Thank you.
Who's here? Who's here? Heather?
Yeah.
Thank
you.
you.
Mr. Mayor. Yes, that is the date that it was received. Now the due date for all, or deadline for all applications, was September 15th. So that's where the 1 day would come into play.
Thank you. Don't forget too that if this is defeated, we can go back to the 5 options, and one of the options is to give everyone what they want, knowing that we have the government money to help us with anything to do with COVID. And this would obviously have a big piece of COVID attached to it. So if this gets defeated, we can help everyone out if you choose to. Maybe this is a one-time year where we should take the high road and make everyone happy, make everything stable as this county is able to be right now, and move on and not nitpick about anything. So Councillor Gatward, one more time, and then we're going to go back and we're going to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We also have contingency money. We had a $300,000 surplus last year, according to Heather's report that we just received for information. And I would be more in favor of using some of the contingency funds so that we're not adding this to the 2021 budget, or as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, taking it from the COVID funds that we received. And so I think those are both good options without adding tax increases for the additional grants. And I do agree with Councillor Chambers, what he said about a lot of clubs that are in trouble might not have known about the emergency grant process if they're not online checking the county website every day. So I would like to maybe see even another round of this, if possible, in the future to help any organization so that no one goes under. Thank you.
Point of information, there were two questions asked by councillors that weren't addressed yet. Can I repeat them?
Certainly.
One was, I believe, by Councillor Chambers, asking if this would be the last opportunity to give any sort of funding for these organizations. And I think it's important to answer that question or have somebody answer that question before we vote. And then the other was asked by me, and it was Councillor Gatward has stated that we do have the information for the submission requirements for the Legion, specifically the South Brant Legion. Do we or don't we? Or does she have it, or do we have it? Do we have that information to look at addressing them specifically as either meeting submission requirements or not? Those are my two questions.
Okay, I'm not sure we were done with questions yet, Councillor Ferrier, so I'm not sure that it was up to you to stop the conversation yet. It didn't seem finished to me.
I wasn't stopping. Those were questions that were asked earlier. That's why I gave a point of information.
There was no time limit on the questions, and they will be answered.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Heather, we'll take it back to you then to answer Councillor Chambers first, please. Do you have the ability to answer Councillor Chambers? Michael?
Thank you, Your Worship. So, just to remind Council where we are with this, we've got $40,000 left in the approved budget for grants. Notwithstanding that, there are other funds available to council that have come from the province, or as Heather's report said, also for use for the surplus. And we have other reserves as well. Precautionary, I think I should be precautionary, though. We also have a very unknown financial future ahead of us. So I think council should be prudent when we're utilizing the funds that we have available. For example, we don't know what the second phase of COVID-19 is going to do to our current revenues, and so our deficit may get worse this year. It may not. We're not sure. So council's got lots of options. You can proceed and allocate some of the grants this evening, and then direct staff to do a second offering of grants if you wanted to do that. If you think, as there's suggested, there may be other groups out there. Maybe the initial release of the emergency grant program didn't get as much traction as we might have hoped. Maybe it did. There might be other groups that didn't know about it. There might be other groups that are now in trouble that weren't when it was released. So again, council can direct us to do whatever you want. You can also not proceed to allocate tonight and ask us to reach out to some of these groups for additional information. So there's really it's up to council what you want to do. So you've got lots of options. You do have some funds available. You also have risks in the future, but so we can again, that's the answer to that question. I think the second question was
whether we have the information from Councillor Gatward speaking of from the Legion.
Yeah, I can't answer that. Robin had an emergency tonight, so she may have that information, but again, we didn't receive it. So, I mean, we could certainly, if council want to go back to all these groups and seek out the information that wasn't included in their initial submission. So again, that's the council's in the driver's seat on this one. You can direct us accordingly, and we're happy to help out with that.
Are there any other questions or conversation? Councillor Gatward. I can't hear you, Councillor Gatward.
Sorry.
That's okay.
The president of South Brant Legion is Bob Finch. The treasurer is Jason Spencer, and the secretary is Sherry Graham. That is the information that I sent to Robin, and that was omitted from the whatever it was sent in. I don't believe I even saw an application form. I just saw the Friday file information and passed it on.
Thank you, Councillor Gatward. Is there any other questions or conversation or comments before we call the vote on the amendment? And once it's defeated, if it's defeated, we will then go back to our options and dissect those and see what we can come up with. So we're going to call the vote on supporting the amendment. Heather, do you want to read it one more time, please?
Sure. The amendment is that applications for the emergency grant that did not meet all the requirements of the program be disqualified and referred to 2021 grant funding.
All those in favor of that amendment, please. All those opposed? Heather?
The motion's defeated.
Okay, the motion's defeated, so we go back to our options that are on the table, or any part or piece of any of those five that makes sense to council. Councillor House first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, this is always a challenging subject for us to discuss, and we've been around it a few times. And all I can do is state my opinion and why I feel it the way I do. While we could have the opportunity to play Santa Claus here and give everybody everything they want and try and help as many people as possible, that would be wonderful. But I think we have a responsibility to stick to our budget. We don't know all the details of what's ahead of us financially. So I just wanted to plead a case for however we want to divvy it up, that we can get into that. But I firmly believe that we should not be handing out more than $44,677, which is the budget amount. The organizations will have another opportunity early into 2021 to tap into our grant process. But I firmly believe that we to be responsible and to be stewards of the piggy bank that we control. I think we have to stick to the limit of the amount of money that's available in the budget. Thank you.
Councillor Wheat, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move option number 4, approve grants based on prorated amount of what's available. That's
Seeking a seconder. Councillor House. Any discussion on that? Any more discussion? So that there's lots of discussion. And Councillor Gatward's hand was up first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I understand Councillor Howe's comments. However, we just took $300,000 of taxpayers' money that we collected in 2019 from their piggy banks and put that money in a contingency fund. These people are asking for help, and in essence, that $300,000 is their money that we collected in 2019 from their tax dollars. So I am not going to support the motion that number 4 that's being put forward, because I don't think that these clubs and groups that have applied have done so frivolously. I think that they truly need help. I don't know all of these groups, and if there's a counselor who thinks that that is happening, they may want to speak to it. But I do feel that they're, and I'm going to speak back again to the South Brant Legion. They have rarely, in fact, I can't recall a time when they've come and asked for funding, not for a sign. I know we approved money for a sign for the St. George Legion. We approved money for the Paris Legion for accessibility. The funding that they're asking for is all money that they need to make the repairs requested. They haven't been able to fundraise since March. They haven't been able to rent their hall out, which is usually busy, and they get lots of revenue. And so the taxpayers that support the Legion, part of that $300,000 in surplus is their money. And I don't agree with number 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers, you're next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can support the resolution or the recommendation, provided that that does not preclude someone or some organization coming forward at any time in an emergency situation requesting for funds. And I think if they are given due consideration at the time of the request, when it comes forward in the future, if it indeed does come forward, whatever the group is, whether it be the South Brant Legion or the Burford Legion or the Burford Lions Club or the Paris Lions Club or whatever it is, if we don't shut the door now, then I can support the resolution. And there may be additional organizations come forward. They may not be, but I don't want to close the door. And I don't think this resolution does close that door if we allow it to remain open. Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say I completely concur with Councillor Howes. I think we gotta be prudent too, and we want to help everybody. And the best way to do that is, I think, through the resolution that's on the floor. Having said that, I want to share 2 observations that I made while looking over the list. First one is I was hoping to look at that list and pick out a couple that were easy to say no to, and there wasn't one on there that I didn't like. So I think they're all deserving, whether it's the South Brant Legion or any of the figure skating clubs. My second observation, and because of this observation, I will make an amendment to it, and we'll see if it flies. But if you look at your sheets, there's, for example, there's 3 different figure skating clubs on there. You have South Dumfries, they're asking for $16,000. You have the Paris Figure Skating Club, they're asking for $6,125. And then you have the Burford Figure Skating Club, they're asking for $1,000. And I'm sure they all have different needs, but you get my point. There's a wide range. So if you look at the amounts, you'll see quite a few that are over. There's a lot that are quite high, and there's some that are not so high. But what my amendment would be is that we prorate it, but we also I would lower the maximum amount to $7,500. So if anybody asked for more than that, they would be knocked down to $7,500, and then I would apply the prorated amount. So that's my amendment. I think it makes sense. But I'll see if I can get a seconder for it.
Seeking a seconder. Councillor Ferrier. Okay, thank you. Councillor Wheat, you're next.
I would speak to the original motion, which was number 4. And by supporting number 4, everybody gets a slice of bread. They don't get the whole loaf, but everybody gets a slice, including the South Brant Legion.
Councillor Ferrier, you're next.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so this might seem odd, but I could look at a procedural reason to disqualify some of these things because of my previous amendment that didn't pass, and that's fine. But when looking through it, I have to agree with Councillor Miller that, you know, as you look through it, if there's not a procedural reason, all the reasons for the requests are valid. That said, when I look at the slice of bread analogy, you know, if the South Brant Legion actually needs $15,000, is giving them $3,000 actually going to help them? I mean, yes, everything helps a little bit, but is this a case where with some of these, you know, if it's not that specific number, then they're shutting down and we're throwing, you know, good money after bad? And I'm not saying that about the South Brant Legion, but in any of these. So in a way, that's a part that I have a hard time sort of wrapping my head around. I just want to throw that out there more for consideration. And we do have this extra chunk of money, but I believe we do need to be a little prudent as well.
Councillor Bell, you're next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following on from what David Miller mentioned, just to pick out the skating groups, many of them are asking for money for rental fees. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, those rental fees go back to the county. So isn't it a net zero for those items? So doesn't that mean that we can knock off them and just say, yeah, you just get free rent? Somewhere along the way, if we're giving them money and they're giving it us back, there's a net zero in there. So we must be able to add in, I'm going to guess, something like $35,000 to that figure of 44, which then, taking Councillor Wheat's line, will be a bigger share for everybody. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
No, I don't think you're wrong at all, Councillor Bell. Councillor Pierce, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. And I think, you know, first of all, I'm gonna support the number 4 motion. But if we look at the total there of what is being asked for, it's 148,000. We've got 44,000. If we use the analogy of the slice of bread, there's already several in here that have already got a slice of bread this year. So if we were to look at it in the sense that those that have already received funds, if we were to take them off the list, we might be able to come up with the 44,000 with the remainder. And if there's any left out of the 44,000, then we can split it with the ones that have already received some funds. So if we look at the Brant Legion there, for example, they haven't received anything. There are some that are requesting for more that have already received substantial amounts of money. So in that particular case, I would give more to the Legion than I would to somebody who has already received funds. So I think that's something we need to look at too. There's no way we're going to fit the 44,000 into every single request. I think we need to look at it in the sense we've already helped some, so let's help others.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I'd like to make a comment. As you know, I've been rambling about grants for 2 years now. And in a normal world, or in a world without COVID, I would be the biggest supporter of 44 and not a cent more. It would back up everything that I've ever said about grants and how to do grants and how to process grants. You would take that amount and you would divide it into 23 and everybody would get a small slice of bread. But I also want to say, and I'm just saying this and putting it out there, that I don't feel like Santa Claus by giving everybody what they want, because it's not off the back of the taxpayers that we're doing it if we decided to do that. We do have the $300,000. We do have 44 of our own, 300,000, and we've got $1.7 million coming from the government. So it isn't off the back of the taxpayers. COVID has taken the legs right out from under the county, out from council, out from the mayor, out from staff. We've not been able to do anything We're probably 2 days away from things going back even more. With the premier, I would think that there's bad times right around the corner. This is our only option to help people that need the help that we can do. The rest is all going to be about the province, about the premier, and about the limitations and the policies that we have to enforce after they come down, probably by the end of this week. There's going to be a lot of people in a lot of trouble, I would think within a week. I don't know that, I just think that. I don't know that I'm that far off the mark. So I'm saying that COVID was something that we didn't see coming. No one saw coming. We can't help every restaurant in the county of Brant. We can't help every hairdresser in the county of Brant, but we can help the people on this list of 23 to give them exactly what they want to be stable moving forward to 2021. I don't feel like Santa Claus in saying that. I don't feel like the tax rate's going to go up by saying that or supporting that. I feel this is our only chance of people who've been elected to do good things for the constituents that supported us all of us in all parts of the county. And this is our only crack at it. That's what I think. And I don't think it's being irresponsible financially. It's not. It's been money given to us to do things like this with. That's my spiel. Okay, with that being said, we have something on the floor. It's being seconded, and it's to support number 4. I won't be supporting it. I should have supported it. Next year I will. Last year I would have. This year I won't. That being said, we'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Mayor Bailey, would you like to clarify what we're voting on?
Would you like to clarify it for me, please, Heather?
Sure.
There is an
So-
amendment on the floor.
Yeah, so the amendment on the floor right now is that option 4 be amended to include a maximum of $7,500.
It has a seconder? Yes, it has.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to vote on that first, please. Vote.
Can I have clarification about that, please, Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Chambers can first because he had his hand up. He didn't speak out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just ask Heather to read the recommendation so that we're clear of what the recommendation is.
Heather?
Recommendation 4.
Oh, okay.
Councillor Gatwood, is that what you were going to say too?
No.
Would you like to say what you were going to say now?
Councillor Miller set a limit of 7,500. And if we are taking out the skating clubs, ice rental requests, then that will reduce the amount requested. So anybody left that's requesting over 7,500, the larger amounts, they're going to be knocked down to 7,500 each. As an example, the Paris ringette. Oh no, theirs is to cover ice fees as well. And so there's the Paris Minor Hockey Association have got ice rental fees as well. So will all those be deducted? Before I vote on this, I want to make sure I understand what I'm voting on. So all the ice rental fees from all the various groups will be taken out, and we won't require that.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. I don't think that was ever a motion. That was a suggestion.
I don't know that that was ever said.
That was never a motion.
It was never a motion.
Okay, that's fine. I thought Councillor Bell made that point.
Suggestion.
Suggestion, and you agreed with it, Mr. Mayor. So perhaps we have to have an amendment for that. I'm not sure.
It didn't have a seconder, and I agree that that was in principle, that was a wash. That's all I agreed to. Councillor Bell, do you want to speak more to it?
I do. I think it's just an accounting thing, and maybe the accountants from the county can help me here. I mean, we're giving money out and they're giving it straight back, so it's a net zero. So we should almost discount them from the distribution calculation. And there are 4 or 5 items there that we should just take off, and it brings 148,000 down. I'm going to guess round to about 110. So we're narrowing that gap between what we have and what is being requested. But maybe Michael or one of the Heathers can help me here.
Michael?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and Heather's there. Maybe Heather, do you have an answer for this, or?
Heather?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we can summarize those and remove them if you wish. We will then use the Safe Restart funding to offset further revenue loss, because would be a revenue loss because revenue wouldn't come in. But like you say, it's there.
So at this point, it's still just a suggestion, Councillor Bell?
No, I think it's much more than that. I think it's just practically, if we give money to the Ringettes, give them $9,000 out of our funds, they're going to give us it back. So the net effect to us is zero. So we don't even need to worry about them. I mean, we could just say you have free ice and that's it, done.
No, it's much bigger. It's much more confusing than that, I think. But Mr. Bradley, can you tell me that it's not that much more confusing?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think what Councillor Bell is saying is conceptually I think I would caution council to make a decision on this without having the right numbers, because I can't guarantee that all of the $15,000 that the South Dumfries Figure Skating Club is asking for is to reduce ice fees, and that if we were to just waive their ice fees here tonight without the information, that would be the additional budget impact to our bottom line. So I think I would caution council about doing something like that without the treasurer going away, consulting with the recreation staff and coming back with a firm number. So if Councillor Bell is just talking more on a principle basis, yeah, I think we can agree that this is a grant that we send to them, but then they send the money back to us, and so at the end of the day, we're still fiscally healthy and we've helped them out. If that's what he's saying, then I could agree with that. But I would discourage council from making a motion or something to start waiving ice fees right now without the fiscal context and consequences of that.
Thank you. I see a lot of head shaking. Yes. So Councillor Wheat?
Yes, waiving ice fees would be a huge mistake.
Thank you, Councillor Wheat. Councillor Bell, do you still want to try to find a seconder?
No, I can go with it. I'm not sure why it's such a huge mistake, but I'm not an ice skater. I don't understand why it would be, but I'm happy to go with the flow and just have it there as conceptually possible. And if it comes out, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Okay, Heather, do you want to then tell us what we're voting on, please? Councillor Wheat first.
Just to help out Councillor Bell, when you've been on council for 17 years and seen organizations that have come up short renting ice, then you will understand. And I'm not going to name the organizations, but I know a few.
Thank you, Councillor Wheat. Heather, could you please let us know what we're voting on?
Sure. So we're voting on that the grant option number 4 being approved grants based on a pro rata amount of what's available be amended to include a maximum of $7,500 for any grant.
Everyone's clear? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Heather?
Motion's defeated.
All right, so we're going to move on to something different.
We do still have a motion on the table to approve option 4, which is that, one second, I'm just pulling up again, that we approve the grants based on a pro rata amount of what's available.
44, not a penny more. You know what we're voting on? Councillor Chambers?
Just to recollect that this does not preclude them from any organization for asking for a penny more if indeed they can make the case and make an application forthcoming. I understand that that's still in play.
I believe that anyone can come to council and ask for money at any time for any reason. It's up to council to decide what the emergency is. I would consider a roof falling down, like at the War Museum. We, you know, back in my foundation days, that seemed like a very needy thing to give them on a rainy day. So I would suggest that covers it. Anyone can ask council for anything, any day of the week. It's up to us to decide. Councillor Gatward?
It's 8 o'clock.
Councillor Gatward?
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to support number 4. I believe that the contingency money and the surplus that we just allocated to contingency reserve should be used to help out these organizations. And we would be taking approximately $100,000 from the contingency. We just put in 100 or 1.7 million. We can use that also. Whatever staff feels is the easiest, but I would support number 2, which is approve all the emergency grant requests.
Number 4 is off the table, not number 2.
I can handle this, Mr. Wheat. Thank you. Councillor,
I'm just saying,
Councillor Gatward, we're holding a vote on number 4 right now. If it's, you can bring your number 2 to the table.
All right.
Please be patient with the process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Be patient with you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, procedurally, I'm where Joan is. Can we vote on this one? And if we agree it, can we then bring another motion forward which asks for even more?
Absolutely. We can do anything you want all night long. But right now we're voting on number 4. Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Heather, could you read it one more time so that everyone's clear on what they're voting on?
Yep, that the grant option number 4, approve grants based on a pro rata amount of what's available, being 44,677, be approved.
Okay, that's what we're voting on. All those in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? Opposed?
Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Mayor Bailey, so that incorporates number 4, but we still need the motion to approve the grants report as amended with option 4.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going back to the question I just asked. I mean, we've approved collectively option 4. Is it not possible to then propose a motion which goes further? And can I do that now?
Mrs. Heather, can we add to that?
With all respect, you know, Councillor Wheat was correct to put forward an option, but the rest of us didn't have a chance to put forward an option.
Well, that's because we brought number 4 as an option and we just voted, and the majority voted to support number 4.
Yep. But nobody gave us the opportunity to offer option 1 or 2 before number 4 was on the table.
We did need to. Had that not been passed, then options could have been brought forward all night long.
Well, I don't think we haven't debated the other options.
Heather, can you clear that up for me, please? I don't understand what we've done wrong in this process.
I believe since we have actually spoken to the amount and that it was going to be on the pro rata basis, I don't think we can go to any of the other options without doing some kind of renewal or reconsideration.
Okay. Councillor Miller, please.
I'll move the report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is it got a seconder? Councillor Pierce?
We do actually already have this on the table from the beginning of the discussion.
That's right. We have it on we have it on the table.
I thought you needed it moved again.
No,
so long ago.
It was so long ago when we were all friends. Call the Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking to the report in general and Councillor Chambers' comments, When will the next deadline be for the second round of emergency grant funding? I think that we need to set that. I think that Councillor Chambers' point is well taken, that a lot of groups that don't check the county website daily or weren't notified by a councillor about this program for help, they didn't know. And I think it's a great idea to have a second round. And if somebody tonight needs additional help that they don't get, they can apply in the second round, and new groups, other legions or other clubs, Lions or whoever can apply. So
Thank you, Councillor.
when will we bring that forward, Mr. Mayor?
Let's let Councillor Chambers speak to it, because I'm not sure that he was talking about another round. He was talking about the option of people coming to council to ask for money for an emergency. Councillor Chambers.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I commend you on encapsulating the philosophy 100%. Anybody can come at any time and request anything from council. So if someone feels they needed more or didn't get enough tonight, they can make the case to council just exactly as what you said. And that is exactly the point that I was trying to make. If we have passed the resolution tonight, that does not preclude anyone from coming at any additional time. We don't have to set deadlines. We don't have to do anything. You're 100% correct, and you've handled this 100% correct. And I commend you for it, because it's not an easy task to do. You've done it very well. So I think we should move on. And I don't like it when other councillors put words in my mouth, but I will put words in your mouth. You've done a good job, and we need to move on, and you've encapsulated the process 100% correctly.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Are there any other comments, concerns, or no? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor to accept the report? Opposed? And carried. Thank you very much. Communications. Councillor Chambers, you've brought this to our attention. Do you want to speak to this? Mr. Walton has information if you need it.
Yes, one of the residents did send me an email regarding these hazardous waste day, and was making the point that perhaps it's so successful and so well used that we may want to have an additional hazardous waste day. As a result of sending that email, I know Councillor Miller may want to speak to this as well. We received a reply from Matt about some of the preparations for one of these days, and some of the ongoing discussions about hazardous waste days in the future. So if we could find that response from Matt that was I think given to David, that I think explains where we need to go from here. It was just a letter that I thought I wanted to share with other members of council, in that the success of the program is such that we may wish to do it again. And the letter itself, I think, made some good points. But I know the staff is responding to that, and that was the purpose of me putting it on the agenda as correspondence.
Thank you. Before we go to Mr. Miller, then, can we hear from Mr. Walton? Do you have any more information on that, Rob?
Through the mayor to council. As council probably does know, we actually in 2020 were going to be working with Brantford to actually have 8 events co-sponsored by both municipalities. Due to COVID, really, that didn't get off the ground. So, and the other thing is with all the changes coming up with recycling and the funding from the stewards, the future of these events has some questions around them. We don't know whether the stewards may take this, the funding for this entirely back and do it themselves eventually. So I think that we need to watch what's coming from the province on this. And we have as staff actually talked about the possibility of, in the future, if we do still get funding, of actually funding and having our own site, possibly at Paris, where we could accept this many days of the year when we're open there. So I think there's a lot of potential for improvement in this program, but we have to watch how the funding comes from the stewards over. And that'll be over the next year or so that we'll hear that.
Thanks, Mr. Walton. Councillor Miller, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, very, very quickly, because there's the debate on at 9 o'clock that I'd like to watch. I will say that Matt Don, great reply, great response to this, and it was shared with the letter writer. So, and he seemed quite happy with it. But what Matt said was the show didn't open up till 9 a.m. So he's not quite sure why there was concerns about the line not moving prior to that. Second of all, yeah, I think most of us around this table know that producer responsibilities come to the blue box. So eventually we won't have to worry about that as counselors. But I didn't know, Matt said also most likely, and Rob, you alluded to it, that hazardous waste will also be taken on by the producers. So there's that aspect. And in the notice that went out to the papers, they did say there could be extra delays this year simply because of COVID. So they had to do things a little bit differently. But if it doesn't go towards a producer responsibility, Rob, you mentioned maybe Paris all year round or something like that. I would like to see this improve, because I know in the years past, this isn't the first time we've had complaints about the long lineups. I think this year was a little bit longer than usual. So like I say, if it doesn't go forward with producer responsibility, maybe, yeah, we look at something that would encourage people to properly dispose of their hazardous waste, because I think it's human tendency for some people, if it's not easily and readily available, they tend to do things with it maybe that aren't good for the environment. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. You're okay with that, Councillor or Mr. Walton, taking that back just as information? Thank you. Can I get a motion just to receive this for information, please? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Chambers, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor to receive this information? Thank you. Number B, Councillor McAlpine, you have a resolution, please.
Okay, moved by myself, second by Councillor Miller, that the request for street naming and recognition of William James Perryman be referred to staff for consideration.
Any comments, concerns? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number C, Councillor Gatward. Can't hear you, Councillor Gatward. Hello.
Sorry, it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor House that the proclamation of October as Child Abuse Prevention Month and proclamation for Dress for Purple Day be proclaimed in the County of Brant, Tuesday, October 27th, 2020.
Thank you for bringing that forward. Are there any comments or concerns? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? It's a wonderful thing. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Number 10, questions? Anything that's not seeming to be unanswered for you? Resolutions, I see none. Other business? We have two. Councillor Miller, you're first.
Okay, and again, very quickly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to commend our bylaw department, and I see our head of bylaw is not with us at this point. I think he's off. And Brant County OPP and the provincial OPP. A few weeks ago, they did raids on various illegal cannabis growers throughout the province. And they had a bust here in the county. So when they do things like that, I really think it's I think they need to be commended. These, the whole cannabis situation it's really not fair. It was legalized in the hopes that maybe it would get more, take that criminal element out of growing cannabis, and unfortunately it seems to have attracted more. So if anybody, and you know, anybody that wants a really good concise story about all the facts on it, Monty Sonnenberg in the paper where he talked, or in the edition of the Expositor where he talked, there was the story about Brant County bus, there was also one that happened in Norfolk. Norfolk has a little bigger problem with their grow-ups than we do. But Monty Sonnenberg, he's the Norfolk, he covers Norfolk for the Expositor. And on September 19th, that's a Saturday, right beside the Brant County story was a story from Norfolk. And in that very, very few paragraphs, Monty Sonnenberg did an excellent job of capturing everything that's wrong with the cannabis in across Canada. So I would ask, like I say, if you want to learn anything about it, go read that from September 19th. But other than that, like I say, Mayor, I just want to commend our OPP staff and maybe through the Police Service Board member, Councillor Bell, you could, or not Bell, Pierce, you could pass that on that, you know, at least this councillor is very happy with the work they've done. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. As someone that sits on the Police Services Board too, I will make sure with Councillor Pierce that they know it. They're always being criticized, so it's nice to hear a good news story. So thank you for bringing it forward. Councillor, did you add something for other business?
Yes, I did, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. The Grand River Conservation Foundation, which is associated with the GRCA, give out in 2020. They're going to offer 3 scholarships to help post-secondary students prepare for a career in an environmental field. And the applications for these 3 scholarships, which are $4,000 each, I believe. Yes, they are $4,000, are available. And the application deadline is November the 15th, 2020. You can go to the foundation website and find these applications. And the contact, if you're having difficulty, is the Conservation Authority at 400 Clyde Road in Cambridge. And they have a toll-free number, etc. And if you really want more information, you can contact me. But I thought that council should know about this. And if they know of post-secondary students who are in the environmental field, the details for each grant are posted. And one is the SC Johnson Environmental Scholarship, which of course is a local one here. But these are for universities and Conestoga College that are within the Grand River watershed. And so if we have students in Brant County participating, we hope they'll apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gatward. It's good that we know that, as we've proven tonight, not everyone checks with websites and don't have ways of knowing things. So thank you for bringing it. People will be watching tonight and they'll be able to contact you if they want more information. So thank you for that. Moving on to, I'm sorry?
I just said you're welcome.
Well, thank you. We're going to go now. We're on number 13 in camera. Councillor Miller, please.
Yeah. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Coleman, that County of Brant Council convene in Canberra to discuss litigation matters affecting the municipality and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, and that's Report 20-96, Paris Grant LPAT hearing.
Thank you. All those in favor?
1 second. I'm sorry. That was totally on me. Councillor Miller, that resolution is just to go in camera to receive a verbal update on a staff matter. Sorry, I just said the wrong resolution.
And I'm reading it thinking I don't remember reading that in the minutes, but okay, yeah, just I move that we go in camera, second by Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. Vote to go in camera. We're in camera. Heather.
Often seconded by Councillor Chambers that bylaw numbers 96-20 to 101-20, excluding 99-20, be read a second time and all clauses and preambles be adopted.
Are there any questions to any of the bylaws? Seeing none, call the vote for the second time. Call for the third reading, please, Councillor.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Chambers that bylaws number 96-20 to 101-20, excluding 99-20, be read a third time, passed, signed, and executed.
All is well. Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Our next meeting is scheduled for October the 6th, or if something happens, it'll obviously always be call of the chair. Everyone stay safe. Thank you for all you're doing. There's a lot going on, as we said today, in the county, and we're all doing a very good job. Yeah, stay safe. Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you.